Good morning, everyone. Okay, yeah, we don't quite have it yet. We're getting there. Good morning, everyone. There's no volume on this thing, so a little loud. Okay. Thank you, Bryce. Welcome to Interfaith Community Sanctuary. We're so happy to have you here this morning on this sunny, summery, spring-like summery morning, and we're so delighted that we are living in a place where the weather is not extreme at this moment, and we're very grateful for that. I know we are grateful for that. And no smoke in our air that we can detect right now. So God, thank you for bringing us this blessing. I've been talking to so many people in so many places who are suffering from so much climate disruption. So we send prayers to all of them. And I have lit our world peace candles. We certainly are praying for world peace today. We're praying for peace within and peace without. And we're praying that everybody can come to a central place where you can find and water our joy garden this morning. We have a joy garden within us. So let's kind of get our little watering plate out and do some watering of the joy that we know is within us, that we can bring up and we can celebrate together. And we welcome you to do that with us in community. And we'll start our service, as we often do, always do, with a number of traditions that we have developed. And the first one is to welcome our ancestors to join us at this gathering. And George will explain how he thinks of that. And remember, you can think of your ancestors however that works for you. Some people call them all our relations.
Thank you, Sally Jo. I don't know where to be here, so. Well, good morning, everyone. And Sally Jo asked me to invite in our ancestors today, and I've always loved to be a part of this, and she's calling on me probably more often than she should to get up here in front of you people, but it's always a delight. And we look at this ancestor business the way we look at divine feminine in different ways, each of us do. But we all know that we stand on the shoulders of someone greater than ourselves, someone who helped us to be who we are, someone who supported us, or whatever it is. So we ask that you each consider bringing into your heart, bringing into your attention right now, someone or some ones that stand out, as being ancestral benefactors, or whatever you want to put it. And let's just take a couple of seconds and be quiet. I don't know his name, unfortunately, but it looks like Mazizi Kanune. And appropriately enough, this poem is entitled In Praise of the Ancestors. And he says, even now, the forefathers still live. They are not overcome by the power of the whirlwind. The day that sealed their eyes did not conquer them. Even the tall boulder that stands over them casts only a humble shadow over their resting place. They are the great voice that carries the epics. The ancestors have come to listen to our songs. Overjoyed, they shake their hands in ecstasy. With us, they celebrate their eternal life. They climb the mountain with their children to put the symbol of the ancient stone on its forehead. We honor those who gave birth to us. With them, we watch the spectacle of the moving mists. They have opened their sacred book to sing with us. They are the mystery that envelops our dreams. They are the power that shall unite us. They are the strange truth of the earth. They came from the womb of the universe, Restless they are, like the path of dreams, like a forest sheltering the neighboring race of animals. Yes, the deep eye of the universe is in our chest. With it, we stare at the centers of the sky. We sing the anthems that celebrate their great eras. For indeed, life does not begin with us.
Thank you so much, George. That was beautiful. We also have a tradition to acknowledge the land upon which we sit and stand today. And we would like to acknowledge that we gather on the ancestral homelands of the Coast Salish people who have lived here from time immemorial. And we express our deepest respect and gratitude for our indigenous neighbors, those who are still living here, for their enduring care and protection of our shared lands and waterways. And I also have a beautiful poem honoring Mother Earth, an Iroquois prayer, which goes along so well with our spiritual discernment that we are working on this year, with trying to dig deeper and deeper into the interconnectedness we have with all life, with all living beings, and with all non-living or every other kind of being on the earth and in the cosmos. And it's all about gratitude. We return thanks to our mother, the earth, which sustains us. This is an Iroquois prayer, by the way. We return thanks to our mother, the earth, which sustains us. We return thanks to the rivers and streams which supply us with water. We return thanks to all the herbs which furnish medicines for the cure of our diseases. We return thanks to the corn and to her sisters, the beans and squash, which give us life. We return thanks to the bushes and trees which provide us with fruit. We return thanks to the wind which, moving the air, has banished diseases. We return thanks to the moon and the stars which have given us their light when the sun was gone. We return thanks to our grandfather, Hino, who has given to us his rain. We return thanks to the sun, that she has looked upon the earth with a beneficent eye. Lastly, we return thanks to the Great Spirit, in whom is embodied all goodness, and who directs all things for the good of their children. Thank you so much. And we have our altar here that honors the divine feminine, and Jamal is going to lead us in a chant that where we can all join together to honor the divine feminine today.
Thank you so much, Sally Jo. So in the Islamic tradition, to honor the divine feminine, we start with honoring Maryam, that's Mary, mother of Jesus, peace be upon him, peace be upon her also. She has an entire chapter in the Quran, chapter 19, Mary. The second one in the Islamic tradition is we honor Asiya, the wife of the Pharaoh, because she rescued Moses from the water. The third one is Khadija, wife of the Prophet Muhammad, who was, by the way, 15 years older than him, than the Prophet Muhammad, Khadija. So the chant is, Hazrati Bibi, oh respected, beloved, we mentioned the person, Salam alaikum, peace be upon you. And peace and greetings be upon you. And then she replies back, peace and greetings be upon you, on all of us. So first one is Maryam. Hazrati Bibi Maryam, Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. And she replies, Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. Asiya. Hazrati Bibi Asiya. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. She replies, Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. Khadija. Hazrati Bibi Khadija. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. She replies, Wa alaikum assalam. Wa alaikum assalam. And just allow that, as Ruby might say, to splash in your heart or to perfume your heart. Just a few moments of silence. Our beloved sister Isla providing music.
May the heart of earth and the heart of heaven beat in my heart, beat in my heart. May your heart and my heart be as one, be as one. Alleluia, Rakhamim, Shalom. Alleluia, Rahman, Salam. May the heart of earth and the heart of heaven beat in my heart. Please sing. Beat in my heart. May your heart and my heart be as one, be as one. Alleluia, Rakhamim, Shalom. Alleluia, Rahman, Salam. May the heart of earth and the heart of heaven beat in my heart, beat in my heart. May your heart and my heart be as one, be as one. Alleluia, Rakhamim, Shalom. Alleluia, Rahman, Salam. Alleluia, Rakhamim, Shalom. Alleluia, Rahman, Salam.
May I invite my friends to come up here, please? My dear friends, a very, very heartfelt welcome to you. Please know your presence is truly a blessing. And by the way, we have a tradition. Every time we start, I ring the bell, which means that, as I always say this for the last, well, since 1997, since I've been here, since my hair was black, I always ring this bell, which means that you're glued to your seats, unless you have to go to the as we say, the sanctuary of release, which is straight ahead this way. Okay, I'm ringing the bell. And once again, a very, very heartfelt welcome to you. Please know your presence is truly a blessing. And we always start with a chant, and I'll use the one we have been using again for the last 30 years. Allahu Allah. Singing praise and glory to the divinity, knowing that God doesn't become holy, we become holy. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Just the beloved women. Just the beloved men. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Family all together. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Once softly. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. Twice aloud. Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah, Allahu Allah. I'm just becoming very still, experiencing what Hafiz calls the glow of presence. So my dear friends, what a genuine joy it is for me to introduce my two dear friends here. Very humble people, these two friends of mine. Highly distinguished with incredible credentials. If you look at the program, we shorten their, you might call the biodata. But they have been champions of justice, of love, of higher understanding, both nationally and internationally. So my dear friend Duncan, for example, Dr. Duncan Ferguson, I've known for at least 20 years, I think we've known each other. And we've written a book together.
We looked young then, too.
That's right. Duncan has published 15 books altogether, has been all over the world. You can read his incredible description of his work, but what really splashes in my heart, of course, you were at one time acting president of Whitworth University in Spokane. And then he has traveled all over the world, and it says here, he has worked extensively in Northern Ireland during the Troubles, Catholics and Protestants. And he helped in solving the conflicts between India and Pakistan, which is always ongoing. He's saying they're all solved now. now that he's away. And Dr. Thomas Patrick, first time I'm meeting him. Kirkpatrick. You can read from the description here. He travels nationally, done national work, educator, pastor, trainer. He's been a pastor at several churches, seminary, university professor, campus minister. He an author of 5 books. He's passionate about creating community, progressive Christianity, and human justice. And he's got a blog also. And by the way, there are wonderful books downstairs that you can purchase. So I thought we'd speak briefly, each one of us, 3 of us, and then open up to question and answer, really. And Sally, you can ask the first question if you want. Any comments, any questions? Because we want this to be interactive. So whoever wants to go first among you. So Dr. Thomas Kirkpatrick, welcome.
Thank you, Jamal. It's wonderful to be here in this Interfaith Center, and with your warmth and your effusiveness, we really appreciate your greeting and your inclusion of us here today. It's all about relationships. It should not be surprising that healthy congregational life and ministry is centered in relationships. In fact, spiritual vitality is centered in loving God, ourselves, and one another. From a relational perspective, where do you see signs of health in your congregation? In what areas of the congregation's life and ministry might you search for signs of health? Well, when I think of places to look or search for words that capture congregational health, this 4 C's framework comes to mind: community, communication, character, and collaboration. Community, ways we share with one another. Communication, ways we interact with one another. Character, the ways we treat one another. And collaboration, the way we work with one another. Imagine that it's time for your monthly support group to begin. You've developed a level of trust with one another from careful listening and a non-judgmental climate. You can count on talking about those things in your life that matter most. You get to share what makes your heart both sing and ache, knowing that you will receive the care and encouragement and support that keeps you going, helps you growing, and sustains your well-being. These qualities of healthy small group life create a safe atmosphere for intimate sharing and gives the courage to share what's been happening in your life since you last met. Well, this small group has created a sense of community through members sharing and support. Community is a relational term and can best be defined as close personal relationships. It has to do with building relationships with one another and belonging to one another. A sense of community requires a type of interpersonal intimacy and communication characterized by openness and acceptance, warmth, and support. Other ways we share with one another and create a sense of community include experiencing trust, showing empathy, practicing forgiveness, and bridging cultures. Well, here's a story that leads to our second C, communication, to ways we interact with one another. One day as we were gathering for our weekly text study, one of our colleagues blurted out his frustration from last night's council meeting. "The biggest problem in my church is communication breakdowns." To which my other colleagues said, "Me too, me too, me too, and me too." Well, healthy interpersonal and small group and organizational communication are central aspects of my communication studies and relationship science academic disciplines. In fact, I've become aware in recent years that textbooks have been written on such topics as improving listening effectiveness and managing interpersonal conflict, topics that are at the heart of avoiding communication breakdowns and fostering healthy relational communication. Other ways we interact with one another that create healthy communication are finding common ground, technological savvy, expressing appreciation, and exercising curiosity. Well, let's move on to our third C, character, ways that we treat one another. All too often, people outside our religious communities are turned off by judgmental and hypocritical behavior by some of us within our congregations. And so this common perception is, of course, contrary to our religious texts teaching to be welcoming and inclusive and accepting of all people. For me, anti-racism work, partnering with indigenous people, and the full inclusion of LGBTQIA+ folks are demonstrations of this teaching. And those of us in positions of power and privilege must live into Isabel Wilkerson's charge in her book, Caste. She says, "The price of privilege is the moral duty to act when one sees another person treated unfairly. And the least that a person in the dominant caste can do is not to make the pain any worse." Well, it's how we treat one another that draws people or repels people to our faith. Character matters in congregational life. For example, the prophet Micah puts it this way: "What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God?" And Paul, another religious teacher, says this: "Endurance produces character, and character produces hope. And hope does not disappoint us, because God's love has been poured into our hearts." And here are some other behaviors that, treating one another, embody healthy character behaviors: feeling compassion, demonstrating love, and promoting peace. Well, our fourth C, collaboration, has to do with ways we partner with one another, to ways we work together. The practice of collaborative leadership has become more common than in previous generations. In fact, partnering between clergy and laity is a long-valued best practice in my religious tradition. Nonetheless, this top-down corporate model of directive leadership is common in many quarters. And while some people may resist the movement from top-down to collaborative leadership, this shift will be particularly beneficial for effective discussion and decision-making in our congregations. And here are some other signs of healthy collaboration: strategizing and visioning, discerning direction, openness to change, and organizational agility. Well, there you have it, 4 C's, signs of healthy congregational community, communication, character, and collaboration. How healthy are relationships in your congregation? How healthy are they? Where do you see signs of health? In particular, how well does your congregation do in creating community, in communicating with one another, in how you treat one another, and in collaborative ways you work together? Thank you for this time.
Thank you so much, Brother Thomas. So just a few moments of silence to allow these wonderful insights to go deep inside you. And if any, and when the time comes from question answer, any comments you have, any questions you have, just moments of silence. Thank you. Dr. Duncan Ferguson.
It's so good to be with you this morning. I've been here a few times. Always feel welcome when I come. And so good to be back with you again. And have enjoyed the years of deep friendship and mission in the world with these two gentlemen on either side of me. Goes back, believe it or not, when I was about 3 years old, of course, into the middle 60s, when Tom was graduating from the University of Oregon, and in that setting I was a campus minister. And so Tom and I met in that capacity, and believe it or not, I was a couple of days older than Tom as a campus minister. 64, 67 were those years, and they were not, the 60s were not easy years. And boy, did we have a wonderful college group who gathered around to say, how can we live in this crazy world? And they really wanted to find the answer to that question. And we worked hard on that question, as you can imagine. Working on that question, I was fortunate to have another friend who told me all the answers to how to deal in this troubled world, Jamal Rahman. And we have been working on that question together now for several years, and it has been an extraordinary privilege. It's hard to overstate the privilege of the friendship that we have. It is so incredibly valuable to me. I've spent a lot of years in my teaching at the university level and my writing, trying to figure out what values will help us cope with this world which is in deep danger and very perilous. I've thought and thought about that. What should be inside of me as I go into this world, or when I go to my television and turn on the evening news and see the latest development in our national government, or the latest report on our international or our national environment. What kinds of attitudes should we have to deal with those deep and profound questions which our generation must deal with? Quickly then, I have found myself going to a half a dozen values which seem to me to be vitally important at this time. I'll just mention them and then we can talk about them. The first is I need to be deeply committed to truth. When I turn on the television and get the latest report from our president, I say to myself, I just can't trust anything he says. Truth is not an issue in our national government. I say to myself, if we're going to deal with the critical problems we're facing as a nation and as a world, we must face the truth directly in order to find ways to solve our very pronounced problems. The second word that comes to my mind as I look at our world, I see enormous suffering. With these two gentlemen, and particularly with Jamal, I've had the opportunity to travel around the world and see incredible suffering, hunger that just goes on day after day for millions of people. So the second word that comes to my mind as I think about that is compassion. We must learn how to care for those who suffer, and that should be a part of who we are as people. A third word that certainly comes to mind as well for me as I think about all of this is the word justice. That is, the only way to really show intelligent and wise compassion is to ensure that the people live in a just society, that everybody's treated fairly and equally. Because if we go into the world and see that 3/4 of the population of the country is in the midst of deep poverty, we know that there's something wrong with the issues of justice in that country. A fourth word then that comes to me very quickly is the word, how then can we have peace in the world? So we take these in order then, and it leads me to the fourth word, shalom. And as I read the wonderful Hebrew scriptures, as I read the New Testament, as I read the Quran, I learn from these great religious, magnificent documents that shalom is fundamental to the human welfare. Absolutely fundamental to the human welfare and how we go to it. And then as a final word or two, just so we can go into discussion, I want to mention just two other words. When that peace comes, when there is justice, then all of a sudden we have freedom, don't we? That is, we're free to work our life out as we see fit, as our intelligence, as our education, as those we live close to, our life partner, we are able to work out a way of living. But we can choose it because the government is just, and the government has compassion, and because the government has truth about what our needs are. And then, of course, living freely, we are able to be a people of hope. I confess, as I talk to an awful lot of people, and I try to shoot them with truth serum in some way or another by just being kind to them, they tell me, I've kind of lost my hope. I'm not sure what the future's going to be, and I'm pretty afraid. So as I think about our world, it's those words that come to my mind, and it is the values of that person who was a great teacher and taught me so much and continues to be my teacher, Jesus of Nazareth. Those were his words, and those were his values. And it's Jesus whom I follow.
Thank you so much, Brother Duncan. Let's move this. So once again, a few moments of silence just to allow this to go deep into us. These beautiful, wonderful words of Brother Duncan. And now, my job was just to listen and just make a few comments, but particularly as I know myself, to watch the time, not to go over. As some of you know, I fulfill the greatest insight from Taoism, which says that the greatest problem human beings have, they just don't know when to stop. So I'll keep a close watch there. So what comments can I make? Relationships. You know, there's a wonderful verse in the Quran that says, if Allah wanted, Allah could have made all of us one single community. But God chose to create diversity so that we might get to know the other on a human level. In the other verse, the Quran says, which is very precious, and very meaningful, Allah says in the Quran, and we have created some of you to be a trial for others. It was not meant to be easy. So when I think of connecting with the other, and that's been our ministry, connecting with those who are difficult, meaning, you know, someone who I don't agree with, etc., etc. You know, in Sufism, Islamic spirituality, they say, and some of you know this very well, practice 3 cups of tea. Listen, respect, connect. Brother Jamal, are you listening? Not really. I'm just formulating my answer. So what is listening? I love the words of Rumi. Listening is metaphorically like putting your head on the person's chest and sinking into the answer. Can I listen? Number 2 is respect. Doesn't matter how controversial, how adversarial. Can I respect, meaning can I make a distinction between behavior and being? I'm angry at that person's behavior. Unacceptable. But their being is Christ nature, Buddha nature, Elohim nature. And just keeping this discernment in my mind and heart as I take the right action, as some of you know, has the power to shift heaven and earth. So listen, respect. 3rd one was connect. When I meet somebody who is Islamophobic, misogynistic, anti-Semitic, I first just want to just get to know the other on a human level. Because once you get to know somebody on a human level, no matter what the difference is, it becomes impossible to demean that other person or demonize the other person. That's why I love this wonderful insight with this Christian writer. When you meet the other person, you know, just get to know the other. I think her insight is, remember, this universe is made out of stories, not atoms. This universe is made out of stories, not atoms. Okay, just be with that. Relationships. I heard truth. You know, there's a wonderful saying by Sufis for all of us. Brother Jamal, do you speak the truth? And just be honest with yourself, because not just Sufis, all the sages say, there is truth and there is truth of convenience. Most of us are engaging, indulging in truth of convenience. That's why I love this Zen saying, I'm not remembering, where Zen master said, Brother Jamal, there is no need to seek the truth. There is no need to seek the truth. Just stop cherishing opinions and judgments. So just be with that. Am I doing that? I wanted to, as both of you are speaking, I just wanted to also mention one beautiful quality, which is in all the tradition, love. In the Quran, it says Allah is Al-Wadud, meaning eternal love. That's why Rumi says, love is in every religion, but love has no religion. And that insight from all the sages, Brother Jamal, what is your life journey about? What is my life journey about? It's really about loving. It's about being loved, not being loved, but yearning to be loved. That's my whole life story. Being loved, not being loved, but thirsting to be loved. That's why, the story I tell very often, that poetry by that 14th century sage Hafiz, who says, Brother Jamal, every time you meet somebody, anybody you meet, just now as I'm speaking, you're really saying, please love me, please love me, please love me. But Hafiz goes on to say, but of course, Brother Jamal, you're saying this silently, otherwise somebody would call the cops. So love. That's why, for me, the greatest practice in my ministry, in doing therapy, counseling, is just this one practice, the Sufi practice of focusing on your heart and telling your heart, I love you, or you are loved, again and again and again. I love you. You are loved. And then, in your meditation, waking hours, just pouring out light and love from your heart to stones, to trees, to people, continuously. So love. And Brother Duncan, you mentioned compassion. That's very big in Islam. In fact, Prophet Muhammad said, peace be upon him, that if compassion was a thing of the created world, there's nothing in the world that could be more beautiful than this. And the power of compassion. I mean, I speak a lot, all over, when people say, what's the big deal about compassion? The metaphor of water. There's nothing as soft and yielding as water is, yet for overcoming the hardest, the most insurmountable, nothing as powerful as water is. Meaning, the person who is gentle, merciful, compassionate is possessed of raw, authentic strength. And the Quran says, wherever water falls, life flourishes. The person who is compassionate is life-affirming, life-bestowing, life-giving. And by the way, the Quran and all holy books say, that's great, but you also have to cultivate higher understanding, higher awareness. In fact, in the Quran, the most used word is Allah, 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 Allah. The second most used word is ilm, awareness, knowledge. So this story I tell all the time, metaphor which I have probably focused on because of my parents and teachers telling me to do it again and again and again and again and again and again. The story of this loving, compassionate monkey who would go to neighborhood ponds and lakes to pluck the fish out of water to save it from a watery grave. Ponder on, there was a compassionate, loving monkey who would go to neighborhood ponds or lakes to pluck the fish out of water to save it from a watery grave. The compassion is there, the love is there, the higher understanding is not there. Justice. The Quran says, be just. This is closest to being God conscious. The Quran says, be witness to justice, even if it means you testify against yourself, your relatives, your parents, rich or poor. Now this quotation which I have, this verse from the Quran, is actually on the wall of the Harvard Law School in a very big way for people to go and reflect on that. But to be just, I have to be a more evolved human being, and this is a critical point. Am I doing the work which is called the inner inconvenient work of transforming my ego from a commanding master into a personal assistant? Am I doing the work of cleansing my heart? Am I doing the work of opening my heart? And lastly, you mentioned peace. Peace. Can I be nonviolent? So I'll just end with two stories. One Sufi story where, if you remember, there was a village that was traumatized. Why traumatized? There was a poisonous snake biting people. So they called in this Sufi master who understood the language of animals, who convinced the snake to practice nonviolence. And the snake agreed, okay, I won't bite anybody. After a year, when the Sufi master came back, he found the snake in a very pitiable, ragged condition, was wounded. And the snake said, oh, Sufi master, what did you teach me? This nonsense of nonviolence. Children throw stones at me. Adults grab me and hurl me against the wall. And the Sufi master said, listen, snake, I asked you to stop biting. Did I ever ask you to stop hissing? So just be with that story. And the last one, I was not planning on, I love to collect poetry and stories to reflect on. So I just came across this from a wonderful poem about war. Can we avoid, can we just get away from this tendency to hit back? So this is by a very well-known poet. I know who the poet is, who died in 2008, Mahmoud Darwish from Palestine. And he wrote, many years ago, the war will end. The leaders will shake hands. The old woman will keep waiting for her martyred son. The girl will wait for her beloved husband. And those children will wait for their heroic father. I don't know who sold our homeland. But I saw who paid the price. Just be with it for a few moments. Now comes the time we would love for you to engage in any comments you have, any questions you have for this wonderful group here. Sergio, I had asked you to ask the first question.
Well, I have something, but if she gets the first
Yeah, then she gets the second one.
Jamal asked me, just sit down, Jamal, you're part of the questions. He asks me because he knows I ask difficult questions. I loved your talks, all three of you. Thank you so much for focusing on so many important values that I think everybody in this congregation agrees with. But here's the question. You gentlemen represent two out of many different spiritual religious traditions in our common day, everyday world. We have the Islamic voice, we have Christian. And I know there have been times when we've had Jewish rabbis up here, we've had Buddhist monks, so we have many, many Native American people. All of us, all the people in our, purview as an interfaith gathering, we see people from many different religions. And something we see happening in all religions, I'm going to ask you how you deal with it in your own tradition. It seems that no matter what religion we choose, for ourselves, because we believe in the precepts, there will be people who take that same religion and make it stand for something that we feel is absolutely wrong, not right. It could be the people in the Muslim world who use Islam and the Prophet Muhammad to fight terrible wars and hurt and kill people and suicide bombers and all that. In the Christian world today, we have Christian nationalists who are trying to make Christianity a national religion. And so they're all different examples. In the Jewish world, my God, we already know what's going on in Palestine. How do you deal compassionately with people who have, I would say, kind of hijacked your spiritual path and turned it into something actually we might even say evil or wrong or terrible? I told him it was going to be a hard question.
I have a thought here, and that is, I've been on your website, and if you've not been on Jamal's website, it's jamalrah.org. There we go. And as I and as I was surfing my way through it, I caught this notion from you. You said, with your experience as a Muslim, you see other religions as so valuable that it helps complete you. That was a completely new notion to me. I would say it complements my faith. Here's an example. I have people in my family that are fundamentalist Christians, and they would have problems with what I just said, because if you don't invite Jesus in your heart, you're going to go to hell. So if you don't do it not only the Christian way, but you don't do it in their flavor of Christian way, you're not there at all. There's no interest, there's no value in other perspectives. But I really appreciate that other faiths, other traditions, other worldviews help complete or complement my own. And it's something that I'm learning, and I will try to do even more after having just surfed your website.
I am honored.
I'd like to take just a quick run at the question and framing it just a little differently. I hear that many of us who have this responsibility of sharing our religious traditions with others in congregations and so on use a lot of words like should and ought. And I'm getting a little bit uncomfortable with so many of those words, because they become a kind of a legalistic orientation. You ought to do this, and you should do that, and you must change that. But they talk less about how it is that we are transformed inside of ourselves so that we have the capacity to truly love. And one of the passages, would you hand that book to me, Tom? One of the passages that I found written by the Apostle Paul to the church in Philippi, it was a congregation just starting about 60 miles north of Athens, and Paul had been there telling them the story of Jesus and so on. And he talked to them a lot about how to live the Christian life, because it was brand new to them. They were Romans, that was their culture. If they honored anybody, it was Plato or Aristotle. They'd hardly ever heard the word Jesus before. They didn't live in the Holy Land. And one of the questions that came up from the Philippians was, how in the world do we do it anyway? You know, I've heard too many people say you ought to this and you should do that and so on. But please give me some information on how I could be transformed so that I can truly love another person and not be driven by my own needs, seeking power or authority over another as I deal with them in the relationship. The Apostle Paul, when he writes to the Philippians, when they ask this fundamental question, they say, how in the hell do we do it? They didn't use quite that language, but that's what they meant. And he said, here's how you do it. It's a good long process, but he said, let this mind and spirit be in you. That is, transform yourself initially from inside, he said. And he said, you know, Jesus is our model of someone who loves freely and openly and easily without trying to gain power over others or manipulate them or hurt them in some subtle way because of the relationship. And he said to them, do it like Jesus did. Let this mind and heart that was in Jesus be in you. And here's how he did it. He emptied himself of his needs for power, of his needs for control, of his needs to manage others in order to get his own way, or even to seek a way in which he could be superior with other people. He said, emptied himself of his needs for self-aggrandizement, for self-control, for self-management. And he said, empty yourself of those needs, and then let this mind, that is, the mind that was in Jesus, who gave himself freely to everybody, even if it cost him his suffering and ultimately his life, let that mind be in you. So I wrote a little book about that verse.
On following Jesus.
Yeah, on following Jesus. And that was the verse that stimulated the book. Because I had struggled also with the whole question of how do I love? And I preached 427 sermons that are in my file on loving others. I mean, that's what we folks do, you know. And I couldn't find many very good ones on how to do it. There were a lot of shoulds and a lot of oughts. But I think we fundamentally need to be transformed.
So very briefly, I just want to comment on what my brother said. The one that you so mentioned, beautifully mentioned, Brother Patrick, is this wonderful verse. Interfaith is not about conversion. It is about completion, becoming a more complete, developed human being. So when I study religions other than Islam, this waters my Islamic roots, makes me a more beautiful Muslim human being, but also makes me a more complete, developed human being, not just a developed Muslim, but a developed human being, actually. And the other point you mentioned about the, personal evolvement, Rumi has this wonderful verse, about studying different religions or studying the Quran, for example. He says, this depends on your level of evolvement as a human being. So he says, he gives a metaphor, a bee and a wasp, they drink from the same flower. A bee and a wasp, they drink from the same flower. One produces nectar, the other one produces a sting. Depends on your evolvement. And the third thing I want to say, which is very important, is every holy book has two kinds of verses, particular and universal. Particular verses are in desperate need of historical and textual context. Universal verses are timeless, placeless, filled with universal wisdom. So if you just take a particular verse, you have to have the historical and textual context. Which is why, by the way, Rumi also says, every holy book has difficult verses. He says, I think modern sages say, I wish I could use whiteout. Or I could engage in holy amnesia with these difficult verses, but they exist.
Thank you so much for this opportunity for us to engage with you. You asked us the question, how is your congregation doing? And I would say that as part of the interfaith community, we're doing pretty darn well. And part of the thing that I cherish about our community is we don't use this word, but we do it. At the end of pretty much all of our gatherings, we have a time like this. And the native cultures would call it council. Now that's council that ends in CIL, which means that people get to sit in a circle and be heard. Everyone gets to be heard. It's lovely to hear the elders who have this wisdom to share, but there is also wisdom out here among all of us. And it is the counsel that brings us together. The listening that we need to do. And here's the thing is, with counsel, you're allowed to say what is on your heart. You're encouraged to say what is really in your heart, and allow yourself to be vulnerable. And the trust is that somebody out there isn't going to jump in and say, I got a solution to your problem. But just to be able to sit with someone else's pain, whatever is going on with them, and allow a divine force to come in and be the healing ointment. And with that, your question about how all of these religions sometimes have difficulty with each other, the thought that comes up to me is having compassion for them, because the reason they are having difficulty is because they are in a state of fear about something. So having compassion for their fear.
One quick word, when the Dalai Lama had representatives from the other great religions of the world in a council in where he lives, Mongolia, up in that region, he was asked, what is religion? And he had all of these people with advanced degrees and years of experience, and he expected paragraphs to flow out. And when he was asked the question, he said, be kind. Be kind. That was it. That finished the story.
Okay, here, and there. Yeah.
So I kind of have some insights, a little bit like an example based on all the wisdom you guys have just shared with us. I'm thinking about someone who might be controversial, but Bhagwan Rajneesh, Osho, and all of his writings and teachings, meditations, and he's the guy who did some crazy stuff in Oregon. We all know that. And without judgment, we can look at Osho as a whole person and not just some of the things that may be perceived a certain way. But I love that he would bring in all teachings from every religion and say there's no one way, there's no one path. It all starts from in here, inside of us, with love for ourselves, that then can grow and go out to all the rest of us here. And I just think it kind of also lends to that idea of non-judgment, both politically, because you can do some things that politically aren't acceptable, but that doesn't make you, and maybe you didn't even mean to, and maybe it didn't even happen the way people think. There's just so much to get to the truth of it, right? So just thank you so much for all those thoughts today. Really appreciate it.
My Interfaith amigo, Ted Falcone, will always say, all religions are a path to a shared universal. You have another question, but you want to say something? Or do you? Okay. Yeah, and then we have one there.
One thing I was just going to mention is the language I use when I'm talking about this subject office is God speaks many languages. He knows a lot of languages. She knows a lot of languages.
Well, let me follow up on that because, yes, God speaks. So I want to give a little shout out to silence. It's my thing. And it's implicit in what all of you have said, but, we hear an awful lot about doing and maybe not so much about being. And taking the time out to just be silent and to let things, and Jamal, references between each of your speeches, is to allow what's being said, excuse me, to sink into our hearts with reality as opposed to some sort of instinct to respond or to be thinking of our next answer or whatever it is. And so I'm reminded of one of my favorite quotes from Meister Eckhart. And he said, may we follow peace and inward silence, that the eternal word may be spoken in us and understood.
And just to tell you, Brother John silence every Thursday, right here in this place, sanctuary, every Thursday at 7 o'clock. Every Thursday.
Thank you. This has been so inspiring. I'm sorry I came a little late, so I hope I'm not repeating something that you said at the very beginning. But taking that question also about how is our faith community doing as far as communication. The Baha'i community is working on it. We have such a long way to go. And but one of the spiritual teachings that's helping us grow in that is, and I call it a spiritual law, really to avoid backbiting and criticism. And why that's helping is because, say you come into a room to consult, and if you're confident that people are not going to criticize you or find fault with your opinion, there's a level of trust which gives you the freedom to share. You know, so it answers the part of the question of, yes, everybody should share, but how? How do we have the confidence, or how do we feel worthy to offer our opinion? And if you really feel confident that you're not going to be criticized, so another part of that is once you offer your idea, you don't own it anymore. It just becomes in the center there. So that's a kind of detachment. I was also thinking about another help for that is to ask for help. So I want to spiritually transform to become less judgmental and not criticize others and have those thoughts. But I can't just do it because I want to. It takes some, divine help. So whether you're asking the Holy Spirit or you're asking God or you're asking your forefathers, for support in transforming, that's an aspect of that as well.
Maggie Smith is a wonderful Baha'i, I don't want to say leader, but you don't have, you have no hierarchy. But the Baha'i community has fireside chats very regularly, right? Fairly regularly. Yes, where, they believe that, as we all should believe that we are all teachers and students alike. Any comment before we pass? A question there, yeah. Sister Amira.
Hi, everyone. Grateful to be here with everyone and having my kids and my husband here. Just sharing a small experience or a discussion my husband and I were having yesterday on our deck, and I was sharing with him that so I'm from a Muslim faith, Arab, and been living in Europe and here in the U.S. for the past 20 years. And I've had many instances where people would tell me, "You're still nice for an Arab after all," or "I hated the Arab until I met you," or things like that. And I think kind of coming to how you deal with these situations, I think was more kind of, I laughed about it. It was more not taking it serious, and in opposite to that, rather share the universal values we have, because I think we all share really universal values. My son was going to a Jewish daycare as a baby, and kind of singing all the Moses songs and making halal. My husband is from a Christian upbringing, and I don't know what you are now, but I would say more but it's more really kind of share what we have in common when faced with these situations, rather kind of just laughed about it. I never tried to defend that kind of, regardless, or even being an Arab, I'm still a nice person, or it was more kind of letting it go and rather share the things we share in common, inviting these people over, sharing traditions like in Ramadan, having people over and just trying to explain or show that it's not something kind of complicated to do, but we've grown up this way and we've appreciated it this way, and just let people into your traditions and your religion, and they kind of, like you said, Imam Jamal, like put your hand on the chest and just sink into the truth. The other thing which I read in one of your books is all the rivers lead to the same ocean, but just don't mistake the ocean for the river, and that's another saying which I cherish. Thank you.
First of all, I want to thank you so much for your persuasive powers. She's brought her husband and her children. My goodness. Please tell us your names, all of your names from that side. First of all, welcome. Thank you so much for coming. Yeah.
My name is Omar.
My name is Munir, and I have a question. Actually, it's no, we should do this.
First the names.
My name is Noah.
My name is Rania.
So thank you for the discussion. I had two questions. I think for Dr. Ferguson, because he started with that discussion around you're talking about the past and today. So the first one is, and they're both interrelated. When I can believe your email address, you have been a bit around the block, a bit longer than me, and so I'm curious how you think about where we are today. So everything we talked about, relationship, about judgment, it seems to be, in my mind, going the wrong way. People getting more polarized, they're more judgmental, they're more exclusion than inclusion. And it's not just in the US, it's everywhere in the world. I'm German, it's in Germany, it's in France, it's everywhere. So these very polarizing, excluding positions, they have a lot of traction. You're good, I'm bad. Yeah, sorry, I'm good, you're good, bad. The way I live is right, the way you live is wrong, right? Like the classical one. How should we deal with that? I think that's number one. And the second one is, when we look in the past, you talked a bit about the 60s and the 70s. They had their challenges. When we look in the past, everything looks a bit smoother than it was. Do you feel today is more complicated than it was, or is this just that we always look in the past and think it was a bit better and, things have been great, but actually it wasn't actually like that, and there was a lot of angst and a lot of, sorrow and...
Well, a couple of quick words. I think that you asked an important question. The first question was, how in the world can we deal with our current culture, which is so conflicted? And I think the answer is, in part, is to do our part. That is, to be engaged in our communities and be one who is able to create a setting where all people feel welcome, all people feel honored and nurtured, be involved in a variety of programs regionally, locally, not just expect it all to happen from the top down. I think we really have to have a movement that comes up and rises up to change our culture in some way. On the second question, are we better off now than we were then, or was it better then than now? I think part of the answer is it hasn't changed that much, but the problems have changed. So we have to articulate and understand the issues and the problems in new ways because there have been such dramatic changes in our culture and our way of life. Just thinking, 50 years ago and now, the transformation in the electronic communication culture. I mean, they didn't know what a computer was 50 years ago. And so in some ways we have to get with the change in our culture and find ways of communication and getting in touch with people and finding ways to motivate them that's resonant with the cultural norms. That is, we don't go into a culture with a methodology that doesn't fit the culture. We've got to be prepared to communicate. I'll give this over to you, Tom.
A thought that comes to my mind is, if we're going to be in communication, there needs to be a commitment to dialogue. If there's no commitment to dialogue, why talk? I was in a carpool one time when I was doing graduate work at the University of Washington, and there were 5 of us in the carpool, and one of the members would only give his opinion and get it out there and could care less about what anybody else thought. And I found it really frustrating. And so one day I remembered that little phrase, this person has no commitment to dialogue, and so we can't dialogue. And once I realized that, I just kind of let go of the attempt to try to do what we couldn't do, a commitment to dialogue. I wanted to make another comment about your comment about what we're doing right now, that we're sitting in a circle and we're talking with ordinary people. When I went to the University of Washington to do my doctoral work, I brought with me this question: what makes our relationships with one another meaningful, satisfying, or fulfilling? And I got some answers from my program. Well, 50 years later, which is now, I wanted to know if the answers that I got back then in my graduate work are still true today. And so I went to my social science colleagues and got really helpful information. But I also decided that I wanted to know what ordinary people thought. And so I did a research project. I asked 191 people, all of my family members, all of my friends, and all of my colleagues, 55 family members, 60 friends, and 80 colleagues, both lay people and clergy people. And I got wonderful answers. And so I published my results in a book by that title. I have it downstairs. And so part of the book is about what social scientists said about it. But a great part of the book is literally 90 different quotations and vignettes and reflections and case studies from ordinary people. Ordinary people said, when I asked them that question, and they said, "That's a great question. I'll need to think about it. Thank you for asking. Here's my thoughts. I hope it's helpful." They were immensely helpful. Think about what we've shared with each other today. Wonderful stuff.
Two illustrations of what Tom has just said. One day, Jesus was sitting in a common area in one of the cities where he visited, and there was a woman there who had gone the wrong way in her life, and he was talking with her, and there were a whole bunch of men who had come and said, "My religion says we should stone this woman to death." What did Jesus do? He says, "Let he who is without sin throw the first stone." And then he said to the woman, "Go in peace." He was also walking one time from the Galilee down to Jerusalem and stopped for a very important place where people got water. It's even called Jacob's Well now. And his colleagues had gone out to get some lunch for everybody. He sat there, and there was a woman all by herself sitting there in the same area. And they began to talk. And finally she said, "Thank you for loving me. You've given me living water." And she went back to her village and said, "I found somebody who gave me living water." And the whole village was transformed.
Thank you so much. So my friends, we bring it to a close. I'll just mention just very briefly one point about anger. You know, in dealing with someone who's adversarial, anger comes up. The Quran says, there are two pieces of advice that have been very helpful to me, because that's my ministry, dealing with people who are adversarial. The Quran says, when you're angry, lower your voice. And Rumi comments on it. Yes, lower your voice. It is rain that grows flowers, not thunder. And Al-Ghazali, very famous Sufi master, says, remember this, when you're angry, be mindful of the tone of your voice. The tone of your voice can be more important than the content of what you're saying. I repeat, the tone of your voice can be more important than the content of what you're saying. With that, with this wonderful content of voice, requesting you some more music.
This is a song in Aramaic. You're very welcome to join me. The words are two words, Inanna, I am, Rahma, unconditional love. This can be a practice in which you send love to other people from your heart. Inanna Ragma, 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 Inanna Ragma.
Wow, let's go like this to Sister Isla, who's been with us for well over 20 years, I think. And my God, every year she gets younger and younger, and I get older and older. I think I must pick up more singing. That's a secret, I think. Well, our wealth.
Thank you so much to everyone, to our honored guests, and to Jamal and everyone for being here. We'll pass the plate now and ask for your donations. And if you're out in cyberspace, we'll ask you to please, if you feel so moved and if the way is open for you, to please make a donation online or send a check. We have a button on our website, a donate button on interfaithcommunitysanctuary.org, and we would love to have you have the privilege of donating to this beautiful community and allowing us to continue our way. we know that many of you are monthly donors. You mail in your donation. You give a donation regularly online. We truly appreciate knowing that we can keep our historic building in good condition for us and all of our programs. We also have many upcoming gatherings every day of the week, actually. As Jamal has mentioned, we have our meditation group on Thursday. We have a Native American medicine circle on Tuesdays, and on one Wednesday a month, we have A Course in Miracles that meets every week. We have book groups who work and study different spiritual texts and important spiritual teachings. We have it all on our website. I invite you to go and look and see what sings to you and what feels right for you and what you might need in this moment, and participate, because Sunday service is only one of the many options. After this service, we invite everybody downstairs for food and fellowship and drink, and we ask you, please come down and share your hearts again with us, because so many important conversations go on around the dinner table and around the lunch table. We invite you to open your heart and tell us what's on your mind and on your heart, because that's how we get to know each other, as you've been so wonderfully clear in helping us to identify that. And we appreciate all the sharing that goes on in this room. I think it's a pretty unusual space. I have to tell you one story. One time we were talking like this in our congregation. We were asked to talk to the person right next to us about something. And I was sitting next to a gentleman who had never been, it was his first time in our community. And we turned to each other, and I asked him the question I was supposed to ask him, and he said, he was quiet for a moment, and then he said, this almost brings tears to my eyes, you guys, excuse me. He said, this is the first time in my life that I've been in a church and I have not been frightened. I have not been scared. And I will never forget that comment. And really, it just gives me the bumps, shivers, because I couldn't imagine going into a church and feeling frightened. So it has always been, I'm so grateful that we can come here, and even though we can walk in scared, and we do, but there's always a sense of peace and support and beauty here, that if I walk in and I'm scared about dying or scared about somebody I love dying, that's okay. But it's a wonderful community that we can create, that we can hold each other in whatever fears or sadness or joys or sorrows. We can hold each other in that and be with each other. So thank you all for participating in this way. It's very meaningful. So we will end our live streaming now.
Yeah.
Do you have more to say?
No, just say, yeah. No, you want to finish? You want to say
That's
more?
all.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sally Jo. So my dear friends, we're bringing it to a close, and as my colleague Sally Jo said, the real service starts downstairs over food and beverages. So in the meantime, we say goodbye to all those wonderful friends who are joining us in cyberspace. Shalom, salam, peace, namaste, sayonara, bye-bye. So let's do a closing, my friends. And the closing we do is maybe this one particular chant. Should we all stand up? Yeah, let's all stand up, yeah. And we'll do a blessing.
We're not glued to our chairs anymore.
Oh, that's right. You're free. You're not glued anymore. Thank you for reminding me. Oh, you proved it. You were able to get up. That's great, yeah. May the blessings of God rest upon you. May God's peace abide with you.